we'll go ahead and get started. Want to see where you're all coming from. If you don't mind, put in the chat box where you are coming from. I see Aditi. Did I pronounce that name properly? New York. Okay, awesome.
You got it.
Very good.
You pronounced it right.
Awesome. And I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So thank you for carving out time this early morning to be here to invest in your health. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I'm mindful of your time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let's start with, how do you know you're in the right place? You know you're in the right place, the right workshop, if you're ready to make a shift in your health and put an end to the yo-yo dieting that takes place, struggling with low energy, frustration with hormonal imbalances, if you're just having persistent inflammation and pain, and you're just gaining so much weight and you can't figure out what's going on. So my promise to you today is that I'm going to help you to learn how to regulate your hormones and your metabolism. We're going to optimize your health through balancing sugar and gut health. We're going to talk about how to accelerate your healing through rest and recovery methods. And there's so much confusion out there. So we're going to debunk all of that. And ultimately, we'll live at our finest holistic health. So a little about me. This is me a few years ago. I had blood pressure problems. I had joint issues. I had chronic fatigue. I was practically sleeping on the highway. Sorry? I was practically sleeping on the highway. It was a mess. But I had to take control of this. Even though I'm a family physician, I'm still human. You know, life happens, get all stressed up, taking care of other people and not myself. I just really needed to get off the blood pressure medicine, get off the chronic fatigue. And that was when I started seeking additional assistance other than the diet that I was doing. I was doing a lot of yo-yo dieting. If there was an occasion coming up, I would do a crash, just do like absent, no eating, no drinking, and then lose the weight. But that was all water weight, and I'll gain it all back. So it was just a holocaust of just so many wrong decisions that I was making that ultimately affected my health. But when I started looking into lifestyle medicine and obesity medicine and just a better sustainable way, then things began to shift for me. And this is when now, today, present moment, I'm really able to capture what it meant to, or what it means to be healthy long-term without the yo-yo dieting, without the confusion. And that's what I want to share with you all today, because it's so important that when we help each other, we're healthy and stronger together as a community. So more about me. I'm a family physician. As I mentioned, I specialize in obesity and lifestyle medicine, and I am the founder of Living at Your Finest company, and it's a holistic wellness company that emphasizes just being healthy, not relying on medication, just being empowered to nourish our spirits, our soul, and body so that we can flourish as health champions. I am a mother of 3. I'm a wife, I'm a lover of God, and I'm a community builder. And that's my family and my 1-year-old dog that we got last year, that my kids convinced me after 7 years of saying no, we finally got a dog. So yeah, that's about me. Now, moving on, and bear with me, this is all try to get used to the Zoom world. So let me tell you a little bit about my beliefs, all right? You're going to see a lot of my slides with scriptures because I'm guided by my faith in God. I love God, and I strive daily to live according to his word. We're all human, so I do make mistakes every now and then, but I'm grateful that I have a God that is merciful and always faithful. I believe in building a strong family, so I do that with my children and my husband. I strive daily to live at my finest holistic health. And as I mentioned, being on multiple medications, chronic fatigue, I really needed to figure out a better way, a more sustainable way of living. And henceforth, learning the tricks and the skills and the tools, I now want to empower others So how do I empower others? It's for you to know that health begins in your home. It doesn't begin in the doctor's office. It's your home. You are your best advocate, so nobody else can advocate for you except yourself. And I also believe that wellness is a mind, body, spirit way. So I believe in the method, the approach, and I believe in skills over pills. Pills, long-term, gives you a lot of complications, side effects. So how about learning the lifestyle skills that would avoid us taking all those multiple pills over a long period of time? Now, there is a role for conventional medicine, like if you have an injury, if you're in the emergency room, yes. But in terms of long-term, those medications are not meant to make us healthy and better. It's just like a Band-Aid, and that's the way I see it. And I believe strongly in paying it forward. So why does this matter? It matters because of our risk factors. A lot of times, we are born into homes that have a history of diabetes, hypertension, all these chronic diseases, and then we feel that, yeah, I'm bound to have it. And I have a family history of hypertension, diabetes, and arthritis. But, I don't know if you've heard where they say that triggers, you have the gun, it's loaded, but you pull the trigger. You have to pull the trigger with your environment. And so we have the modifiable risk factors, such as physical activity, smoking, our weight, our diet, and the ones that we cannot control. So, but what happens when we don't have a balance? So it leads to what we call excess weight. And adiposity just really means excess weight. And what does it end up doing? It causes two main things. One is what we call the sick fat disease. And then the second part is called the fat mass disease. Not one of my favorite words, but just to explain it so that you understand, when we say over a period of time, when the fat is excess amount, it causes the damages that we see that leads to hypertension and diabetes. And unfortunately, the mass itself, so the effect when you have extra fat cells, it causes an extra weight on the joints. And that's where you see what we talk about, you see the stress on the joints, and that's the arthritis that one tends to have. People will have sleep apnea. They would have a lot of acid reflux. So those are some of the things that tend to happen. Now, this just shows how those two categories affect the whole system, right? So every part of the body is affected when there's excess weight. And that was what I had. I had excess weight that ended up leading to high blood pressure, led to arthritis in my joints. So I needed to figure out how can I reduce this? Now, this is not a message for we have to be thin. No, we all are created in God's image, wonderfully and beautifully made, but we need to be healthy metabolically. So everybody comes in different shapes and sizes, and that's how God designed it. So it's not a message to be thin, it's just a message to be healthy, because excess weight does cause a lot of stress upon the body. So moving along, sorry about that, it's so sensitive. Okay, I wanted to show that slide. It keeps jumping. Where is that slide? Okay, it's really not allowing me to show that slide. But anyway, we'll proceed. That slide really just shows the chronic diseases that we need to watch out for and why it's so prevalent, especially in African Americans and Hispanic. I tend to focus more on communities of color because, as you see, we were the ones that were impacted the most. Let me try it one more time and see if it will just go there. So fast. It's like that slide does not want to show. Anyway, let's continue. So the important message is, if we know that African Americans and Hispanics are 3-4 times or even more at risk for chronic diseases, it definitely opens my eyes that we need to do much more education, because I believe that if you know better, we do better. And if we have the tools, it will definitely help us to be able to take care of our health in a better way. And so I like this the saying from an unknown author that says, if you don't take time for your wellness, you'll be forced to take time for your illness. And that's definitely something that is so costly that we don't want to embark upon. All right, so the issue is that there's a lot of confusion, isn't it? Lots of confusion. There's so many obstacles, don't know what to do, so many diets, so many issues. You don't know which one to follow, which one reads true, right? Can you relate? Can anyone relate? Let me pause here and hear if anyone can relate to all the issues. If you can type in the chat box, what obstacles do you see? Because it's very confusing. Do you agree? Because one moment they say, well, eat this. They say coconut oil is good. The next moment, coconut oil is not good. Yeah, food addiction and inflammation. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the diet culture cycle, what's good and what's bad, it changes all the time. So it is truly, truly confusing. I agree. All right. So let's talk about some of these obstacles that we definitely need to be very mindful of. Food addiction, as Aditi had mentioned, overeating, food craving, always hungry, the diet culture, there's always this feeling of restriction. There's also this hormonal imbalance, food craving, overeating. Inflammation is huge because inflammation causes a lot of stress in our bodies, toxic agents, and it affects our glucose monitoring. We also have imbalances in our gut health. So we'll talk about each of them today so that we have more understanding and clarity. See if it will go this way. Let's see if I do it this way. Okay, perfect. Yay, I got it. It was going so fast, I found another way to do it. There's always a plan B if plan A doesn't work. All right, so the question here is, why can't I stop myself? That is a question I've asked myself. Oh my gosh, I am a sweet tooth. Is anyone a sweet tooth here? Are you sweet or salt? Can you put in the chat box? Do I have any partners? Yeah? Salt? Anyone else? Okay, salt and sweet. Good. Right. So yeah, that's me. I am all salt. Oh my gosh. It's horrible. I'm in all sweets rather. So the issue, though, is willpower cannot save us. Willpower does not get us to where we need to be at all. It really doesn't, because our brain is wired to eat in a certain way. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that on the next slide. So in the next slide, let's just go over, right. So over here, this is what happens. Whenever we are addicted to food, our brain is already hyperactive. It is so hyperactive. It always wants sugar because that part of the brain is already stimulated. It's actually said that sugar itself actually stimulates the same part of the brain where cocaine highlights. I don't know if any of you have heard that. So sugar itself is known as a legalized drug. So it's so important that we are aware that it's not our fault. When you feel like you can't stop yourself, you're really trying so hard to not eat the things that you shouldn't eat, it's not your fault. So I want you to understand that it's not your fault. It is the addiction process. The brain wants it, it's wired that way. And because it's been trained over and over, just having one cookie is not enough. I know that I've eaten a whole bag, and this is no judgment, no shame, no guilt, because once I was empowered with the knowledge that it is the way my brain is wired, I was in a better place to be able to get the tools that would get me to avoid the cycle. So as you see here, you eat sugar, you crave it because of the addictive stuff in it, then you spike your sugar, the dopamine is released, you're excited for a brief moment, and then you spike insulin. Unfortunately, insulin is a fat-storing hormone. It does get rid of the sugar into the bloodstream, but in excess amounts, it does store the rest as fat. And unfortunately, it crashes right again. Has anyone had that experience where you actually feel like you are full, and then in a few seconds, you feel like you're hungry again, like you want to eat all over again? So that is very common. Yes, I see some response. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very common. It happens a whole lot. So yeah. So let's move on to the next. All right. And this was exactly what I was talking about. The brain. Look at it. Look at the sites where you have those triggers. So you have the limbic system, the frontal brain, the stress neurons, the primitive brain, and the mirror neurons. What do all these pathways do? They all trigger us. So over a period of time, even when you're sitting, the thought alone of, oh, I have this joy and release of stress temporarily, then your body fights you and it really pushes you based on all these pathways to go ahead and go down that rabbit hole. Now, let's talk about the diet culture cycle. And that is one that, oh my goodness, it's so rampant. Did you know that it's a 600 billion company where you have tons of, ideas? You will lose weight if you drink shakes, or there's something called the military diet, which I'm ashamed to say that I actually tried that, thinking that I was going to drop pounds permanently. So the diet culture cycle is a belief system that focuses on and values weight, shape, and size over well-being. And unfortunately, it's a roller cycle. It just gets you where, okay, yes, I'm going to start on this diet. And then you're restricting foods, all food groups. And unfortunately, when you restrict all food groups, you're missing out on the key nutrients that your body needs. And you're okay for the first few weeks, maybe days. And then you feel stressed because you're not getting all the nutrients that you need. And then when life happens, you get stressed. And then the cycle continues. You go back to your eating as usual. And then you gain the weight and you feel really distraught. Can anybody relate, or am I the only one that goes on this diet culture cycle? Does this sound familiar with anyone? All right. Yeah, sounds familiar. Okay, yes. So that is what happens. And unfortunately, I have patients that, and again, from my own experience, I've seen that it's not sustainable. So what is the better way to sustain our health and help us to live at our finest so that we're whole and healthy? And I'm about to share that with you. Other things, talking about hormonal imbalance, unfortunately, when you have the food addiction and you have the diet culture, gaining the extra weight, because every time you go on a diet, unfortunately, your system, the metabolism actually slows down. So all of that causes hormonal imbalance. And hormonal imbalance, the aspects that we need to look at and pay attention to when it comes to hormonal imbalance is the 6 main hormones: estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. Those are our sex hormones, right? We have cortisol, which is known as our stress hormone that helps us whenever, we are in sympathetic mode. And what that means is, for instance, if a lion comes in, it gets you all picked up, your blood flows, your legs, you're ready to run. So that's what cortisol does. But when we have it over a long period of time, it can be very damaging to our body. Insulin, as I mentioned, that is a big hormone that causes a lot of problems. It is supposed to be a good hormone, which gets rid of sugar whenever we eat. It changes the food carbohydrate when it breaks down to sugar. It's supposed to take it into the cells for proper use. But unfortunately, it also can cause fat deposition. So when that is not well regulated, it affects our hormones. And then the last two are our gut hormones. It's called ghrelin and leptin. That is also imbalanced if you have a whole bunch of things going on with food addiction as well as diet culture. The next thing I want to share with you is inflammation. Inflammation is another thing that causes a lot of problems. Inflammation goes in the joints in form of the foods we eat. If the body cannot break it down effectively, it turns into deposits in our joint, in our bloodstream. When I was suffering from arthritis, that was because of all the sugar I was eating. My body couldn't recognize it as food, so it caused a lot of wear and tear. It also causes a lot of fatigue in our bodies. So that is definitely something that we need to guard against. and I'll share in a later slide how we can do that. Gut health, this is so important. These are the things that arrest our lifestyle overall. It keeps us from living our optimal health. Gut health is so important. It's actually called the second brain because that is where all the good bacteria that helps to create the human, build our immune system. Not only does it do that, it helps with our memory. It helps with just the way we digest food. So all of these are so important that we need to pay attention to. Gut health, so important, and we'll talk more about that. All right, so we've come to the part where we're going to dive into how can we get rid of these main culprits of making us feel less than we are, less energy, making us feel worn out. This is where I talk about the mind, body, spirit approach. And this is where the living at your finest principles was based upon, all from lifestyle medicine. So in no particular order, finest, as you can see, defined as fitness, interactions with one another, nutrition, enrichment, sleep, and take a break. And we're going to go in no particular order, but we're just going to go over them. And then the way I want to go through this, I want to make it interactive. So I would like to hear your thoughts at individual times, how you're able to adapt this into your lifestyle. And that's towards the end, once we finish through the 6. So the first one I want to talk about is fitness. Fitness, there's this mentality, and this is the myth that is out there. I remember I used to feel that I could just exercise all the time, and that will help me live at my finest, or help me lose a few pounds. But the approach here is to exercise smarter and not harder. Interactions, we have to believe in our self-worth and value by interactions. So we're not counting on people to validate us. We need to know who we are. We're all special and unique. Again, we all can't, there's no justification that everybody needs to be thin, because thin doesn't necessarily mean healthy. It just means that we need to be healthy, and what our interactions are like. Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? And then nutrition, we got to eat more nutritious foods, less unhealthy foods. The other concept is enrichment, lifelong learners. So I know that it can get very confusing with all the information out there, but how do we empower ourselves to get the right information? And this is what I did, trying to get to the actual information that has been evidence-based trained, and just what anybody says is known as gospel truth. Sleep and substance abuse, that falls under the S. So rest, this is one of the things that we don't do a lot of. So resting more, hustle less. And then, of course, the substance abuse, heal from toxic waste. And then the last aspect, take a break, which I also call care for yourself. So take care of yourself. So this is mindful awareness of personal needs. So the first one we're going to talk about is fitness. And this is where I need your interactions. What do you guys think about the myth where you need to exercise vigorously to lose weight and ignore nutrition? What are your thoughts on this? Have you heard, or has this applied to you at any point? And you can unmute yourself. I think that will be fine. Okay, all right, very good. All right, okay. And I love nutrition, but I will be honest, there are times where I feel that, at least I felt then, that I could outrun a bad diet, because again, I'm a sweet tooth. I was a sweet tooth. I say I'm recovering sweet tooth. I would eat my cookies and spend 2 hours when I had the chance I would spend that in the gym, exercising or going for a long walk. But unfortunately, you cannot outrun a bad diet, because the diets that we eat, what we eat in terms of the food, it takes a whole lot to burn it. And so fitness is so important for our overall health, because it helps with blood flow, it helps with our muscle building, it helps with our memory, but it's not supposed to be the primary focus for weight loss or weight maintenance. We have to focus on our nutrition. So that's the fact here. And the takeaway message is nutrition, which we'll talk about, is so, so relevant. There's, some places will say 80, I say 90% of it really should be our nutrition, what we eat. Exercise is so important. The recommendation as we move on to the next slide tells you that we need to at least twice a week, 20 to 30 minutes of strength training. So there are different aspects of fitness that we need to engage in, cardiovascular, so whether that's running, swimming, dancing, strength, so important, especially, I mean, for everyone, not just women, where if you don't use it, you lose it. So definitely making sure that we are doing our strength training. And then balance and flexibility is so important so that we can get up and go quickly. We're not tripping and falling as we get older, strengthen those muscles. So all the great benefits of exercise, and I like to call it fitness because people get really stressed about the word exercise, but this is so important that we know why we're exercising for our overall wellness, but not because we want to eat poorly and think that the exercise is going to get us to where we need to be. All right, so the next is interaction. This interaction, there's not so much myth over here because I think all of us can agree that we are social beings and we need one another and we need to grow and help each other, but we need to have healthy interactions. I like Mother Teresa's saying that says, I cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. So this is so important that what we do, how we interact, the people we interact can either make us healthy or unhealthy. And I think you guys will agree with that. Now, the next one is nutrition. What are some of those myths out there? I know that I have been so confused in the past with the different nutrition. One in particular was skipping meals. I recall then I would skip meals, and unfortunately, I'll get into that starvation mode, and then I'll overeat. So I was eating more calories than was needed. And this happens a lot where we don't eat as much as we're supposed to. Our body needs the nutrients, so we do need to eat. Healthy fats. Any thoughts on this? Healthy fats, do you guys agree? They say fat makes you fat, and people try and avoid eating fats. Any thoughts there? Okay, very good. Love it. Any thoughts about, thanks so much for sharing. False. As if you said false. Okay, good. Yeah, healthy fats is so important. Now, fats come in different forms. So we're talking about the healthy fats, right? So we'll talk more about that when we go to the next slide about healthy fats actually helps with our hormones. It helps to build hormones. We naturally make cholesterol. So we need to be very clear about the source of fat. That's what makes the difference. So we don't need to run away from healthy fats. It's the source of fat that counts. All calories are equal. That's another myth out there. So, I've heard people say a donut, which is about 350, if you eat a bunch of another meal that is equivalent, that it's the same. But unfortunately, it isn't, because an apple that is about 50 calories has fiber, has nutrients. It has a whole lot that keeps you fuller than eating a bagel. A bagel is about, when you talk about how much calories is in a bagel, that's about 160. So it's not the same. So calories are not equal to calories because every calorie has different nutrients in there. It could be fiber, it could be the water content. So we need to pay attention to that. Eating frequently is key. I want to hear your thoughts about this because I remember when I started practice, I used to be guilty of telling people you got to eat every 2 to 3 hours to get your metabolism running until I learned otherwise. Anyone wants to share? Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, calories out must be more than calories in. Yeah, thanks for that, Miss. Awesome. Any thoughts about eating frequently is key? Because that also is another myth. I think it's more important to know why you're eating. If you're hungry, yes, go ahead and eat, but not eat because you never give your stomach a break. It needs anytime you eat, there's blood flow. Yeah, depends on the person, might have some benefits, but sometimes, yeah, just not when you're hungry. Absolutely. So when I used to say eat every 2 to 3 hours, I was not focusing on the fact that if you're hungry. Now, because of the mindset that your metabolism needs to be wrapped up continuously, people feel that you need to eat continuously. But no, if you're not hungry, all you're doing is you're spiking your insulin. Remember the insulin that I referred to? That insulin always is like a knock on the door. Oh, there's some glucose here. You got to change it and move it out of the bloodstream into the cells. But if you're constantly doing that, your insulin never goes down. And unfortunately, if you have excess calories, then the insulin is just going to store it as fat. So important, very important there. So let's talk about the next things that we need to know about nutrition. So we need to know why, what, when, how. We need to know about the food groups. So nutrition, as I said, is about 80 to 90% of just our life, our wellness, having optimal health, what we eat, why we eat it, when we eat it, so important. We have 7 main food groups. We have what we call the macro, so the big gains, right? The carbohydrates, the protein, the fat, right? And then we have the micro, like the smaller groups, which is our minerals and our vitamins. All of them have a place on your table. The carbohydrates give us energy, so don't run away from carbs, but just eat the unprocessed carbs. That's what would keep the sugar from spiking all the time. We definitely need to have protein in our diets, right? And it can be plant-based, animal-based. The important thing is when it comes to sticking to a nutrition plan, do something that is simple. You don't want anything complicated because you need to be able to sustain it. So there's no particular diet, or when I say diet, I'm really referring to our nutrition that is the best. It's the one you stick to the most, and that's what evidence has shown, the one that you're able to stick to the most. So back to protein, it helps us build our muscles. It helps us repair. So very important that we have enough protein in our system. Fat, we talked about healthy fat. That helps with all the immune system. It helps with our hormone production. And we need to make sure that we're eating the healthy ones. We see them in avocados. We see them in salmon. We see some of them in oils. Definitely the healthier oils like olive oils, coconut oils, avocado oils. When we talk about minerals and vitamins, also very important because that's where all our nutrients are hidden. And unless we have them, then our body is not able to function. All the neurotransmitters are not able to function at their best. So a whole lot about nutrition. This can be a whole seminar on nutrition. But again, because I'm mindful of your time, I'm just scratching the surface. All right, so let's move on to enrichment. Enrichment is so important. What do I mean by enrichment? It really is focusing on our mindset. A lot of times people say for you to start your wellness journey that you just need to know what to eat and how to eat it. I think it starts with our mindset because we have all these limiting beliefs. I know that I struggle with a lot of limiting beliefs. If I had my mindset well tuned, then I would have understood that the diet culture was not going to get me anywhere, that it was just going to get me on and off again. So mindset is unnecessary for my wellness journey. That is not correct. We need to definitely have a strong mindset. We need to figure out what our belief system is because our belief system generates our thoughts and our thoughts generates our feelings. Our feelings ultimately generates our action and our results. So for instance, if I say, oh, I've been on this journey for so long, I don't think I can ever be healthy. I've tried, I can't do it. Then that is a mindset. That is a thought process that you're cultivating, and unfortunately it will just make you get into that place of not even trying to make an effort, and unfortunately will lead to chronic diseases over a long period of time. So enrichment is just being a lifelong learner, loving yourself the way you are and accepting yourself and striving for those tools that will get you to your goals. Now, another myth is one size fits all. One size fits all is not correct. If you ever hear maybe a health coach or a doctor tell you just eat and exercise and doesn't tailor it towards your own needs, then that is not the right way to practice. Because some people might have joint issues, so there might be a different way to modify the exercise, or some people have, gluten insensitivity. So you would need to watch that. So there's several things that we need to pay attention to. Yeah, so very, very important that we need to know that everybody is different. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Everybody is different. We all need to know where we are. Start where you are. Start where you are. All right, so this is a little bit about the mindset that I spoke about. It's the spirit, mind, and body. We need to focus on our health, because I know we all want to be healthy, right? We all want to live long. We want to be here for our beautiful families. We want to be here for ourselves, healthy. So dealing with the mindset is so important. That is where I started my wellness journey. I had to get off that roller coaster of defeat and find out a more sustainable way. And I started with my mind, and that brought me results of getting off 3 blood pressure medicines, able to run and walk again, able to have joy in my life and peace, and not comparing myself to the next door neighbor, because we're all unique. All right, this is my favorite other than nutrition. I love talking about sleep. Sleep is so, so important. As much as I love talking about sleep, I am a work in progress. So I try every day to improve on my sleep habits. Can you tell me in the chat, anyone else has this issue, or am I the only one with sleep issues? Because we in a busy, busy world, we're always doing something, always, wanting to finish one thing or the other, high achieving individuals, right? So I've heard, even though in the past, okay, I go through cycles, not enough sleep, then oversleep. That's a good one. Yes, thank you for your engagement. You guys are keeping me alert. Thanks for putting information in the chat box. Yeah, so I used to be able to sleep well, but anytime I get busier and I get deadlines, I tend to cut off with my sleep, and it's so important. So the first myth over here is sleep is unnecessary. I've heard people say that. I can get by with 4 hours. I can get by. Who needs to sleep? There's the adage in my country that they say, I don't know if it's from Nigeria, but they say that there's no rest for the wicked, for the kind, I say. So the point here is wellness and weight loss is 50 food and 50% exercise. It's so, so false. And I found that over the years that we need to prioritize our sleep, because so many things take place while we're sleeping. So many things, restoration. As you can see, when we don't sleep properly, we're not able to repair and restore all the memories, do all the healing with our immune system. The recommendation, as you can see on the slide to the right, is for adults, anyone over 18 to about 25 and above, is 7 to 9 hours. So anything less than 7, you're going into. So from 6 to 7 is mild insomnia, and from 5 to 6 is moderate, and less than 5 is called severe insomnia. And there's several stages of sleep. You have the first, second, third, fourth stage. You have the non-REM. That's the part where your body is healing and going through the different stages. And then the other part, which is the REM part, the deep sleep, the dream sleep, is where your body is healing and you're having all your memory. So if I have a patient that says they forget their key and they can't find it, that means they're missing out on their REM sleep. So it's so important that we prioritize our sleep, because as you can see, all the things that can go wrong with the slide to the left, mood changes, memory issues. I had chronic fatigue because I wasn't sleeping well. I was compromising on my sleep. I was finally figuring out my nutrition, cutting back on the sugar, but sleep was still lacking. And until I nailed on and dialed down on my sleep, was I able to see natural weight shedding. I mean, it was just natural. So I was living at my finest, but still deficient in sleep. And that was when I figured out, okay, now I need to sleep. So I went from sleeping 6 hours to 7 hours, and it did make a shift. So definitely, can any of you share some of your practices, what you do? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sleep will help with fitness and food. Yes, absolutely. And sleeping, when we say that we try to, I used to do this too, not sleep adequately during the night, during the weekends. I mean, during the week, but at night trying to catch up. So definitely making sure that we have those habits. I like that you said you meditate, podcast, drinking decaf tea. Those are all great tips for sleeping. I use lavender. I love lavender. I have it as a diffuser oil, or I rub the oil behind my ears, on my hands, and it really calms me down. So I have a sleep routine. So some of these are definitely some that you can adapt. More importantly, one that I've been doing is going out in the sun, going out to somewhere between 10 and 2 and get some sunlight, because that will help my body's natural melatonin to pick up. All right, so that at night, cut back the bright lights, have a routine in place. I do have a YouTube video where I talk more, explicitly on sleep. So it's at the bottom there. If my team can put that in there, that would be great. So you can reference that later. All right, substance abuse. This is just one of those lifestyle pillars that we need to pay attention to. I focused on alcohol here because of what it does to the body. It does, I know a lot of us will drink that as a nightcap, but unfortunately it does affect our sleep. It does affect our organs. It doesn't make us live at our finest. The recommendation is less than a glass for women, 2 for men, but paying attention to what it is that you're drinking. All right, so take a break. This is the last pillar that I will speak about, take a break. Now, there's so many myths out there that self-care is selfish. You can't take time for yourself. You have to be about everybody. Being burnt out is normal and accepted. What are your thoughts about this? Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Right. Very good. Lavender as well. What are your thoughts about self-care? It's hard to say no. It is. I agree. It is. Oh, I'm there too. But when I got burnt out, chronic fatigue, driving and almost dying on the highway, yes, it's a work in progress. It really is. Yes. Oh, self-care, so important, so important. It is affecting a lot of us. We're getting burnt out. Even things that we naturally love to do, we're not doing it. We're not showing up at our best because we're not caring for ourselves. And you know that you cannot fill from an empty cup. So this is something I'm working on that I have improved significantly. It's definitely one of those pillars that have helped me restore my health. Because it's connected back. That's great. Hello, can you hear me? Looks like the computer connected back. All right, can you hear me? Let's see. Okay, you can hear me. All right, very good. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah. So when I was able to learn what I prioritize on, and if you remember, my first slide spoke about what my values are, and even with my family, my husband, my kids, how they tell you, teach somebody to fish so you don't have to give them fish all the time. That is what I try my best to empower my kids. I tell them their emergency is not my emergency. And so it's a gradual process. We're getting better. With my family, they know that a grouchy mom, no one gets anywhere with that. So we're learning to put things in place, be more organized. I'm learning outside of my personal life to say, I'm sorry, I cannot be available right now. Do you have a later time you want to have it done? Or can I send somebody else that might be interested or available at this time? So those are the things. We need to be very strategic about it, set timeouts, and not just taking a break from things around you, but being very clear about things that you want to introduce into your life during this period. Because if you don't fill it up with something, guess what? Somebody else will fill it up for you. Okay, yes, that's good. I'm glad that you said that. I'm reading your comments. Thank you. Ooh, what did I do? Okay, let's talk about some ways we can take a break here. So this is me living at my finest. Oh, you should have seen me many years ago. My hair was falling out. I was a complete mess, but I had to take my life back as a family physician, a mother of three. I do have multiple passions, but I had to learn I can do them, but it cannot all take place at the same time. I will burn out. And for me to show up at my best for my patients, for my family, I have to take time for myself. And so things that I do, I just take a walk, nobody around. I go for my massage now. I have it as a timetable, as it's on my schedule. Because if it's not there, somebody else will fill it up with something. Enjoy a warm hot bath. I love music. I love dancing. Just dancing on my own. It doesn't even have to be with anybody. I saw some of you had mentioned meditating and yoga. Yes, I love that as well. Focusing on positive things. I love journaling. Does anyone journal? Because I love journaling because it takes out the stress. It helps me to recuperate myself. Anyone with keeping a journal? Because that's also a great way to relax. All right, very good. So these are some of those systems that we have in place that help. All right, so now we have the wellness and we have the illness. Which way do we want to lean? I'm sure we can all agree that we want to be well. We don't want to be ill. We don't want sickness taking over our lives. So very important. All right. So holistic health approach, this is everything that we focus on, the whole approach. And this is what I call post-if. So we're talking about our emotions, we're talking about our intellectual, we're talking about our finances, talking about our occupation, spiritual. That is holistic. So that's why I talk about holistic. It's not just one side. It's not just one aspect. All right. So more things that we talk about is we definitely want to be free from sicknesses because, again, as I say, I'm a Christian. I talk about what the Word of God says for us. So we need to be free from stress. God keeps us in perfect peace, those whose minds are stayed on Him, and then free from sleeplessness. So definitely making sure that we prioritize our sleep. And then other things to avoid doing the mindset work, we need to do the mindset work because if we don't, we will continue to have the problems. We need to know that we're using our willpower. It's not going to sustain us long enough, right? We don't want to do it alone. We don't want to do it on empty. And we need to be able to live a balanced, joyful, intentional, and sustainable life. All right, so let me pause here and ask how you feel about this. Let's get some engagement going. Wellness all the way. Awesome. That was good information. Okay, does anybody feel overwhelmed? Because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, and I want to it's a lot of information. I want to make sure that okay, great. All right, well, let's go ahead and proceed. I'm not overwhelmed. Thank you. You guys are a great team. Awesome. So we're talking about healing all the way. I will go through just a few more. So we are definitely, so if you are here and you're ready to make that shift, you're tired of the diet culture, medications and diseases, and you're ready to know better, and you want to, there's this thing that says ready for accountability. If you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. So this is where I talk about this, and this is my last slide for today, and then we'll start talking about if you have questions. So you say yes, wellness all the way. How do you get to this wellness all the way? It's your commitment. Your commitment, you're saying, yes, health is the trunk of our tree of life. Health is an act of self-love. It's our foundation. Health is a journey, not a destination. So just knowing that you can't get there in one day. It's you just get better. You work on it, you get better. And then the causes, you need to figure out what are the causes, what is the root issue? So if you identify issues, like for me, I had the blood pressure issue, I had arthritis, I had chronic fatigue, I needed to get to the root cause and become the cure, right? Because it's more cost effective and time saving. I don't want to be paying copay every month for medications and pills to mask my problem instead of getting to the root cause. And then the other aspect is clarity, right? Why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to live at your finest? Definitely, when we identify why, that will help us and will put us in the right direction. And then we have confidence in our decision once we're clear. And then we're no longer guessing because we know the path that we're going. And then the last aspect is definitely coachability, meaning that, I'm a wellness strategist. I have a coaching program as well as online courses that are going to be coming up in a few months. That definitely I'm available for additional assistance if you would need that. But the beauty of having a wellness strategist, as you might call it, is that they find your blind spots. And even if it's not me, if you know somebody else, it helps you positively reinforce. So you need to make sure you go to the right one because you don't want anyone to complicate things because there's already so much confusion already. They help to develop new habits. You can have an accountability partner, right? So important. These are so important. You want to get to the root cause of things. So let me stop sharing now and give an opportunity for questions that you might have. I'm mindful of the time. We have 3 minutes, and I want to make sure that if you have questions, we can throw in some questions here. Thank you all for hanging out with me. I'm going to give you some time to